Janet Edwards. I'm the Director of Programs and Operations at Growing Places. So a couple of years ago, we wanted to start growing food indoors in the winter season. We got really excited because we have this awesome basement space at the Doyle Conservation Center in Leominster. It's right next door to our offices. You would never even know it was here unless you came by at night and saw the purple lights from the tower farm. We're growing food every day, every month, all year. In our region, we have a lot of what are called food deserts. Food deserts are areas where fresh food isn't easy to get. It might not be available in any form for quite a distance from your home. If you don't have a car, if you don't have transportation, public transportation, it can be even harder to get fresh food. Our job is trying to help make sure that everybody, whether you have a car, don't have a car, whether there's a bus near you or not, you can get to the fresh food that you need to have. So Growing Places uses a lot of different strategies to get food to people. We have farmers markets, we have a mobile market that comes right to people's homes and to places where people already are. We have a tower farm, which you can see right behind me, and we have community gardens that we work in as well. So we have been working with food pantries and other food assistance sites for a number of years now. And one of the things that we started to notice was that the donations of food that they get, most of the time, are packaged foods. They might be really high in sodium, they might be really high in sugar, and they don't usually have a lot of fresh produce. Produce is really hard for a food pantry to store. They don't always have refrigeration. Sometimes it can be heavy. When it goes bad, it's hard to dispose of the waste in a way that is environmentally friendly. So Growing Places exists in part, the reason that we're even around, is to help even that playing field. It's really important to us that everyone has access to the same kind of food too, in order to be equitable, in order to be really fair for everybody. Can't just be that everybody gets some kind of food. Making sure that everybody's belly is full is not enough. Everybody should get the same quality of food. Everyone deserves that. So we try to make sure that the best food that's available in our region, the food that's coming from our local farmers, the food that's fresh and really, really beautiful, that's going to everybody. It's available to someone to buy at a farmer's market, but it's also available in a produce donation bag that goes out to someone who's been identified as really needing it. So one of the things that I learned at Growing Places when I started working in our gardens was that food waste is one of the things that I have control over when it comes to climate change. It's one of the things that each individual person can make a really big difference with. Your food waste, when it goes into the trash, not into a compost, but right into the trash, doesn't really go away. It just goes to a landfill. And when your food goes to a landfill, what it's really doing is contributing to greenhouse gases. So by limiting the amount of food waste, one, by using your produce quickly and in time so it doesn't go bad, but also by making sure that you put it back into a compost, for example, you are keeping it out of landfills and reducing the amount of greenhouse gas. Americans on average are wasting almost half of the food that they purchase and bring into their homes. It's a crazy statistic. I feel good about having the opportunity to do something on a small scale that has a really big impact on a global scale. Growing Places works with a lot of partners. We're a pretty small organization. We only have 6 staff. So in order to make all of this work happen, we work with partners like hospitals, we work with community partners like senior centers, and we're always really excited to work with schools. We work with youth volunteers all the time. They get to do everything we get to do in whatever way works for them. So I've been working all year with Derek Alford, who is a TerraCore service member with Growing Places. And Derek has been working on maintaining our tower farm for us.
Hi, I'm Derek Alford. I'm one of the TerraCore service members, and I operate the tower farm. So typically what I'll do when I get ready to plant, I'll take the seeds and we'll put about 2 or 3 seeds per rock wool cube. And then we have our rock wool here in our propagation trays all numbered. And basically I'll just put about 2 or 3 seeds in the rock wool in the propagation tray. And what'll happen is as soon as they get wet, the seeds will start to germinate, and with the light on it, then they'll start to grow. So after about 2 weeks, as you can see the first true leaves here, once they get to about that height is when they'll be ready to transfer over to the towers. Once they're ready to be transferred over to the towers, we'll take our rock wool and then we'll just pop it right in our towers. And this is our red boar kale. So for these towers, they don't have stoppers. So if I were to just put the rock wool in, it would just fall straight through. So we have to have these stoppers here. Whereas our microgreens tower has stoppers in it. So once I place it in the towers, we don't really have to do too much with it. It'll stay in there at minimum 2 weeks. Depending on what it is, the lettuce and the kale typically takes the least amount of time to grow. But if we were growing something like leeks or cabbage, it might take a little bit longer. Once we've placed them in the towers, how this whole system works is these lights will turn on, the LED lights, and then we have the pumping systems in each of the towers that are on 30-minute timers. And essentially there's a central tube, what I would call it, and the pump, it sucks up the water, and then the shower cap, kind of the water collects up here, and then it drains through and it will hit the roots. So these plants here, this is a winter boar kale. That's typically what it will look like when it's ready to harvest. So to show you how we harvest, basically what we do is we'll take it out here and then we harvest it. When we harvest, we do the date and we track the weight of the produce and how many bags we are harvesting. So once we harvest, I take it over to our warehouse for our CSA bags. We try to mix it up a little bit, but we try to get as much spinach, lettuce, and kale as we possibly can because that's what people like the most in their CSA bags.
We grow a lot of interesting stuff at Growing Places, and because we're working with local farmers, sometimes they're growing really interesting stuff. They have bok choy, they have radicchio, they have things that before I worked with Growing Places, I'd probably never even heard about it. When we're giving that out to folks, it's really important that they know what to do with it. So one of the things that's important for us is that we're also providing education. Growing Places tries to provide recipe cards, we provide videos, sometimes we're working with partners. In fact, that's an opportunity for a lot of our youth volunteers to help us do demonstrations and videos where people cook the food that we give out. Even really common produce, things you see at your supermarket, if you're not used to cooking with it and you're not used to eating it, you might not have a lot of ideas for what to do when it comes to your house. The work that we do at Growing Places really revolves around the food system as a whole, and it's not just gardening. You know, gardening is where our organization started, but we really work at all stages. And the work that we do prepares people for a lot of different careers that are related to food as a whole. We have a lot of work that we do that is about coordinating all of the food that's coming in and all of the food that's going back out. Those sort of organizational skills are things that people could use in really any profession. But for us, that's one of the starting places. You know, we do grow food and we have a lot of in-house expertise on how to grow food. So we have a lot of volunteers who come to us because they're passionate about horticulture and maybe they have careers in horticulture outside of Growing Places. There's also a lot of work to be done that involves working with our local representation. So it's what we call policy work. There are laws that dictate how our food system works. Some of those laws are great and really helpful and keep people safe. And some of those laws, they're outdated or they had unintended consequences and we're discovering that they're not so helpful. Instead, they are barriers to getting things done. And then Growing Places work really started in gardening, but that was partly because it's so good for mental health. We were always really excited to share with people that gardening can just make you happier. You know, gardening is a retreat. It's a place that you can go to set aside all of the worries from the day and de-stress. You can get your hands in the dirt and actually feel better. There's a lot of different avenues for professional growth in what we do.
I think one of the big reasons why I love working here is the community engagement part of it. getting to interact with not just the people who I work with, but the community members through some of the collaboratives we have, the Zooms that we go on, the community farms we have, the food pantries, getting to drop off items to the food pantries or senior centers, and getting to talk with local community members, learn from them is something that I very much cherished while I've been here.
So when I think back to high school, I had a lot of classes that I didn't love. I had a lot of classes that were not the things that I was great at. My English class was great. My math class was not my favorite. But now that I am working at Growing Places, there are a lot of things that I learned when I was in high school that I'm finding I actually do use on a regular basis. With gardening, I'm kind of shocked on a regular basis by how often I'm using my basic math skills. I have to calculate things like the amount of compost that I need to cover, a 22 by 13 and a half square foot space. When I think about what I learned about refining my ideas, that process of refining my thoughts is something that I use all the time now when I need to write about the work that I do and request funding for the work that we do. And certainly in all of my science classes, everything that I learned about the scientific method is something that I apply on a regular basis now. We're constantly trying to improve our programs, and really it comes back to the scientific method. You have a hypothesis. I think it's going to go like this in the community. I think people are going to need this. And then you need to gather evidence for that hypothesis. You need to do research to make sure that your hypothesis is really sound. So we assess our communities. We send out surveys. We talk with people and have conversations. And then we test out the hypothesis by running a program. We heard from people that they want cilantro. That's not readily available at their supermarket. They want it at our farmer's market. Let's try. So we run a market, we sell cilantro, and then we collect the data. How much did we sell? Did we sell it at all of our stops? Was it more popular in one location than in another? And we test it out. We collect that data, we see if it supports our hypothesis, and then we start over again. Even though I learned about that process as part of a science class and a very limited experiment in that classroom, we use that method constantly and in many different contexts. We have a lot of volunteer opportunities at Growing Places. We are looking for folks to help us grow food in our community gardens. We teach you how to grow it. We are looking for help in our tower farm to help keep it maintained. We look for folks to help us teach about SNAP and educate our community about why SNAP is so important to sign up for if you're eligible. We are looking for students to come with us to some of our local farms and become farm hands and learn about the process from the farmer's point of view. We are open to any student's passion. If it has to do with our food system, we can find a way for you to help.
I would say my biggest advice for the younger generation, particularly high school kids, is don't feel like you need to rush things. Especially now, there's a rush to kind of have your life together by the time you're 21, 22, and it's okay to not have that. It's okay to kind of explore throughout college, throughout high school, and even beyond to figure out what you're really interested in.
Food is the great connector. Food is the thing that brings all of us together, and it's a really powerful thing. A lot happens around a kitchen table. People break bread, and that's a famous phrase for a reason. It brings peace, it brings relationships, it brings love. It's how you show people that you care. When food isn't equitable in our community, we're leaving people out. If you're interested in volunteering at Growing Places, there are a lot of different ways to get involved. One, you can talk to a teacher and let them know that you're interested. It can even be a group volunteer project for you and your class. If you're interested in volunteering on your own, you can always reach out to us directly. You can email us, you can call our offices, you can visit our website and learn more about what we do.